we're doing a lot of work with parents, young adult parents and older parents, just to increase our communication skills, our listening skills, our speaking skills, because, as a parent myself, I've raised 4 adult children, 1 female and 3 males, and you can't raise your children to be thoughtful people. You can't raise them not to just take no for an answer, to question things, and they not question you. But many of us as parents are not ready to be questioned. We're not ready to answer those questions. So we do a lot of parent work now as well. We also have worked in Jefferson County Public Schools for the past 30 years. And teaching peer mediation, conflict resolution skills, and doing professional developments with teachers. Now, our goal here this weekend is to think about policy. So from my perspective as a community member, generally, I see conflict resolution skills as a life skill that needs to be taught and participated in at every level of our society. And we are a fee-for-service organization. Our ultimate goal is to be able to provide services for free to whomever needs the services. So, and the last thing I want to say is that in the time period, that I've worked with young people in the community themselves, I've worked with A students to 0 students. Students that are, high achievers, come out first in their class, to students who drop out. And, the number one thing they want is respect. The number 2 thing is enough attention. Our young people in particular need attention at least into their mid-20s. And I've watched young people grow for, over a 17-year period of time. If I got them at 12, whatever 12 or 17 is, that's how old they are now, 9? So for a 17-year period of time, I've seen a segment of our community either grow, prosper, or decline and end up in the judicial system. So it is a possibility. I do know that there are other cities where they did take the opportunity to use the skilled personnel in their city, not call somebody in from out of town. We have enough people in this city right now that could handle the situation, but use the skilled personnel in their city to start a citywide conflict resolution culture. And that's enough.
Again, I'm Ed Palmer. I am a member of the Juvenile Justice Advisory Board. I've been appointed to that board by the last 3 governors of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Several years ago, I was appointed chair of the subcommittee on equity and justice for all youth. 12 years ago, when I started this journey of working with the Department of Juvenile Justice in the state of Kentucky, I had this quick answer to disproportionality in the system. And coming from Chicago and being raised by African-American males who grew up in the 40s and 50s in rural Arkansas and Mississippi, I had a simple answer, and that was the system was laden with racists. What I've come to find out is that it's not. That's not the easy answer to the problem of disparities and disproportionality in the juvenile justice system. And what I've done on the CJ and been a part of on the CJ is actually going into communities and actually collecting the data, analyzing that data, and looking at what are the causes at each contact point in the juvenile justice system that contribute to the disproportionate amount of minority youth at that particular contact point. And so I've grown over the last 12 years of working with this issue to realize that it's a very complicated issue. There's no easy answer. There's no easy fix. It's easy to sit back from one perspective and point the finger at the prosecutors, point the finger at the police, point the finger at the parents. But what I've found over the last 12 years is that there are a lot of contributing factors to why youth of color are ending up in the juvenile justice system at disproportionate amounts when compared to their white counterparts. And so I've been committed to this issue for some 12 years, and the CJ has been committed to this issue in four communities specifically here in the state of Kentucky. We've been a part of some initiatives here in Jefferson County. I see Reverend Lacey in the audience. We've been a part of some things that have happened in the Newburgh community. We've been a part of the restorative justice piece here in Louisville, funded the training of trainers for that piece. We're doing some work in Christian County, Madison County, and Fayette County, and also looking to extend our efforts in Hardin County, and Kenton County, and some other places around the state. But I will say that when we look at addressing the issue of disproportionality, roll your sleeves up and get ready for a long, difficult task, because it's not as easy as picking out one part of the system and saying that they are the mechanism that contributes to disproportionality. There's a very complex set of issues that have to be addressed, both from a community perspective, from a systemic perspective, from the legislative perspective, that affects why kids of color are not faring as well as their white counterparts when they come in contact with the juvenile justice system. And so I just want to caution those community members in the audience from taking the accusatory attitude towards any members of the system, because what I've learned is that we really have to get all the members of the system, stakeholders of the system, all those that come into contact with our young people at the table, and really begin to look at the data and see what we can do, both from a policy standpoint, from a practice standpoint, from a cultural perspective, to begin to address the issues of disparities in the juvenile justice system.
And I can. Okay. Mr. Palmer, you set up and sort of identified some things other than race that may explain disproportionality. So my question to the panelists is, one, what is the current status of the relationship between law enforcement, prosecutors, and the community? And can each of you identify these factors that sort of interrelate with race or non-racial factors that we need to deal with in terms of improving the criminal justice system? I think you're suggesting sort of a structural approach to things other than race. Race certainly plays a strong part in it, so how do we deal with race? And then how do you identify those non-racial factors that may impact disproportionality as well?
Factor is poverty. I think that it cuts across the board racially, and I think that individuals who are impoverished, because they want to feed their family, because they want to do certain things, and they may not be educated, there are only certain things that they can do, which may be to sell drugs. And so when you have a cycle of lack of education and a cycle of impoverishment, then what we see in the criminal justice system, I have literally had a mother who has had her 6 sons, all 6 of them, who've gone to prison. And when we were sentencing her last son, she said, well, y'all got my last baby. And that's not to me because they're black. That's because they have grown up and not really had the opportunity and not being exposed to be able to do anything besides see and do what is actually around them. And I will tell you that in the poor white community as well, obviously poverty is on the rise as well. I think in the black community there may be more drug trafficking related crimes, but in the white community there are drug user crimes such as methamphetamines. There are violent crimes such as domestic violence in the poor white community. There are violent crimes like incest that I think that is increased in poor white communities where there is a lack of education and just basically an attitude of despair. So that's what I see to be the single greatest issue that has to be attacked. I don't know how it can be attacked. I think that starting at a very young age, you can't expect for somebody to be 18 or 19 years old, and at that time, then all of a sudden they're going to be a law-abiding, driven individual. This has to start from the womb to the cradle, and I think that what we've got to do is to empower childbearing people or bringing people and kids into the world, one of the first things you can do is to not set your child up for failure by ingesting drugs while you're pregnant with that child. One of the second things you can do is to not have your child in a home where there's rife and argument. Your child sees drug dealing and sees domestic violence in the home, because obviously the statistics tell us that you are what you see, essentially. So we've got to just start tackling, I think, impoverished communities. And one of the things that we've got to do on the law enforcement side is to make people feel comfortable with having open dialogues with us. People of color, poor people are naturally suspicious of law enforcement. They are naturally suspicious of prosecutors. And one of the things I do is just try to be an ambassador for the profession everywhere I go. My friends, I'm the same Jessica, whether I'm at court or whether I'm hanging out with my friends. We've got to basically make people know that law enforcement is here to protect them. It's not here to try to make their life more miserable, to send their friends and family off for the next 50 years.
Impoverished communities, you like to talk about when we do our crime mapping, we look at it every week. If you looked at it for a month, we're talking about red dots, you'd have significant red blotted out areas on the map. And we do put our resources in those areas more so than areas that have less crime. And but I remember as a young beat officer going into a home where you've got several kids and not a book in the house, and are they getting the guidance that they need to be successful in life? Because if you're not helping them as a small child, then they're going to be problematic later on because they're not given that skill set. I did have the pleasure of speaking to the graduation of the SPAVA, which I'll probably mess up the acronym, but Society for Prevention of Aggressiveness, of Violence in Adolescence.
Sounds about right.
That sounds about right.
And I mean, what I saw in homicide for years is you deal with kids that just didn't have respect for human life, and it was nothing to be accused of a homicide. It was not a big deal to them. And I've also talked to other kids that at 14, 15 years of age that said this is kind of, more or less they expected. Either they expected to go to prison or they expected to be shot and killed because of drug dealing activity they were involved in. And, it is, what chance did they have to develop so that they could have another alternative to that? So I totally agree that it is impoverished communities. And the police go where the dots are, and the majority of the dots represent the victim, no matter what their race is, that's on that site. So police go where the crime is. And a lot of times it appears that we're, I guess, being too aggressive in a neighborhood, but that's why we're going to where the issues are. We're going to where the crime is. Thank you.
Well, I want to say about 17 years ago, I actually started studying African Americans. Now, that might sound funny because, you can look at me and see that I'm African American. But I want to say that I was confused, and a younger parent, I think my oldest son was probably, 14, 15. And any other parent of an African heritage male child at 14 or 15, you're scared out of your mind. Anybody, could I see amens in the audience? All right. So not only did I have the one 14, well, let's say he was 15-year-old, I had a 12, 13-year-old right behind him and another one that was like 4. So what the heck am I going to do here? I looked around the community. We have great leadership, African heritage as well as European heritage and other heritage leadership in Louisville. But, the most work is done by a few people. So, what was I going to do? Well, the Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. And that's what I started doing, literally. And of course, doors opened, and before you know it, I'm a proud worker at Peace Education Program. So so back to what I said in the beginning, is that I started studying African heritage people at that time because when I work with the teenagers in the neighborhoods then and now, I have one question. Like on May 17th, is that the day it was that the murders happened? May 17th, did the Aryan Nation come in and kill those 3 people? Did the Asian Mafia come in and kill those people? What about any Latino gang? Did any Latino gang come in and kill those people? No. Other young people of the same African heritage, the same economic group, came in and killed each other. So there has to be an underlying issue within the homogeneous group. Because when as I learned about African American people, I really learned about all people. And all people will under stress and immense oppression, will act out first on someone most like themselves, regardless of whoever it is. The Vietnam War was between Vietnamese people. The rest of us just jumped in it. The Bosnian War was between Bosnian people. The rest of us just jumped in it. Do y'all follow where I'm coming from? So this war on the African heritage crime is because it's between the African heritage people. And when you analyze the life of an African American person, there is a large, and I don't deal in numbers for real, I just deal in reality. Most of the people I know are a paycheck away from poverty. Most of the people. So poverty has a big impact on African heritage people, but so does the other issues and aspects of oppression and the everyday stresses of life. Some of us can walk through the world and look like we don't have a care in the world, no problems, but I'm telling you, you're looking at a person right now that has immense problems. I just have learned how to be flexible and handle it better. Many of the people who show up at their doors, they don't have that flexibility. It is a learned behavior. Many of you know that you have children. You tell your children from morning to night and every day how to behave in the world, what to do, don't do this, do that, because I have 4, so I've done it. Don't do this, don't do that. What do? What they want to do, right? That's what you think, right? You know what? That's wrong. What they do is what we do. They do not do what we say do. They do what we do. And what I want to say is that if from the top down, and you can take it from whatever top you want to come from the top down, if they see adults retaliating for whatever, if I hit him, he hits me back, what are they going to do? I want y'all to tell me. They're going to hit back. And I hate to tell you, also as a parent of 4 children, that if I hit my child, don't get me wrong, I whipped my children at some point in time. I didn't beat them, thank God, but I did tap on them. But until I found out something different to do. But if you teach your child from the cradle that you stop doing that by doing this, when they get to kindergarten and Jessica wants to grab my crayon, what am I going to do? Next thing you know, superintendent and all your other educators, they're going to be on that list for behavior problems. It's just real simple as far as I'm concerned. So we have to change what we teach from the cradle to the grave. Grandparents, I do grandparent work, I forgot to tell you that. And in the African American community,